Matt Ryan here, and folks, I just got dropped off here in Soho, and I'm in like a basement or like a boiler area, and I'm looking for Clement. Clement was supposed to meet me here. We were going to shoot in our new studio here, but he's not. Chili Con Carnival. Motherfucker. All right, well, guess it's back to the old studio and some microphones. This is the 2 Point Deduction Podcast.
1, 2, 3, now!
I got stranded in a basement. You just saw it if you were watching it on YouTube, or as Tony Kornheiser likes to say, News Channel 8. This is the 2 Point Deduction Podcast, and I'm Matt Ryan coming to you from a version of the studio, as our cameraman once again has told me to go hide-diddly fuck myself, and he has decided that training for an all-you-can-eat chili con carnival, it's just a carnival, it's not a chili eating contest, is more important than helping us out with the show and getting paid. So, that's good. That's helpful. But we are here. We have a show. Stephanie Sottile will be joining us a little bit later on in the program for Science versus Probability. And probability getting its ass kicked. I'll say that. It's close and contentious. We'll talk about that more later on in the program. But right now, let's go to the news. Starting it off this week in the news, UFC 248 is just a few weeks away on March 7th, and it'll be Weili Zhang making her first defense of the strawweight title against the lovely and never problematic Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And, well, Jędrzejczyk, after photoshopping or posting or liking a photoshopped image of Weili Zhang being affected by the coronavirus or wearing a mask to protect herself from the coronavirus. Well, that's eerily prophetic now, as Zhang had to flee China at the start of what is turning into a global pandemic, when she had to flee China to ensure that she would be able to not only train, but also travel to the fight on March 7th. This is coming to us from MMAmania.com. Zhang was stuck in Beijing during the early stages of the outbreak and then was forced to flee or was going to be stuck in China for an undetermined amount of time. So that would have thrown UFC 248 into a tailspin. Well, we owe tailspin. I got the news that flights between the U.S. and China had been suspended, Zhang told ESPN. Then she got a text from her manager at the UFC, or her UFC manager, telling her to depart immediately. She had to pack and basically throw her whole life into a suitcase because she didn't know if she'd be able to go, not only go to the United States, but if she did go, would she be able to get back to China? She didn't know where she was going to train. She felt like a refugee. And not in the, Tom Petty version of a refugee, but this is a problem. This is eerie for Zhang. She ended up going to Thailand and resuming her training to prepare to beat the dog shit out of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Jędrzejczyk, and you'll see the meme on the MMA Mania Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts, and we suggest you give that a follow, smash that like button, that retweet button, and also subscribe to us here on YouTube or your favorite audio streaming platform. And Zhang lands in Thailand, is preparing to train, and then once again had to make the move. It came very quickly. Zhang told ESPN she had no idea that she had to move. Suddenly, she was told that she needed to leave from Thailand to Abu Dhabi. She spent a week in Thailand, and then on February 7th, fled to Abu Dhabi. She was frustrated and very emotional about the situation. She had 2 local coaches that she could at least speak to, but heading to Abu Dhabi, she felt like a fish out of water. It's slowly becoming Ishtar, or a variation of planes, trains, and automobiles. But instead of trying to get to Thanksgiving dinner, it's Weili Zhang trying to give Joanna Jędrzejczyk a concussion. And it was in the midst of this that Jędrzejczyk made light of the coronavirus outbreak, which now has reached the United States, which is great, which is just great. And Zhang's mother luckily helped Zhang kind of calm down and put things in a bit of perspective. She called her mom and told her she was upset. And Zhang said, she told me that there were a lot of people in China fighting the virus, and I shouldn't be the one complaining just because I needed to travel around. She said those doctors and nurses didn't even have time to sleep, and I should be grateful and overcome the difficulties. My mom's words gave me a lot of confidence at that time. So now Zhang is not only focused and confident, but now has something to prove that this effort and the effort of her fellow Chinese are not going to be put in vain. And Zhang takes her national pride, I believe, very seriously. And that was attacked by Joanna. And Joanna talks a lot of shit, but has not been able to kind of come through in her past few fights. She's earned her title shot, but in her 2 fights against Rose Namajunas, where she was her most vile, at almost Colby Covington levels of shit-talkery, she got her comeuppance twice, and she's going up against a fighter that beat the woman that beat Namajunas, who took Jessica Andrade and just whooped her. So this is going to be an interesting experiment to see how Jędrzejczyk fares against Zhang. And it also puts all of our lives in perspective. Like, I'm complaining that my cameraman went to go prepare for a ChiliCon carnival, but there are doctors and nurses all across the world right now, whether it be in China or the United States, are fighting this virus and fighting against people who are ill-prepared to handle a pandemic of this size. If you look at the United States of America and Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States, who single-handedly, as governor of Indiana, opened the door to widespread panic and the growth of the HIV virus in his state while he was the governor. And Mike Pence is in charge of monitoring and keeping the coronavirus outbreak from growing any further here in the United States. That's worrisome. There's panic everywhere. And we need to, as a country, just as a society, we're fans of mixed martial arts. And, you know, if you look at the comments section of any of our social media outlets for MMA Mania, you see a lot of bluster, you see a lot of bravado, you see a lot of screaming, cursing, and yelling. But at the heart of it, we as MMA fans are very fortuitous. This is a great time to be an MMA fan, and sometimes it's a great time to be alive, and then other times it's the human embodiment of mayonnaise, the plain vanilla yogurt of a person, telling you that there's nothing to be worried about, but it's like Frank Drebin in the middle of a fireworks factory explosion. So we'll see how that goes, and yeah, I'm taking Weili Zhang when we do science versus probability next week. So don't worry about that one. That one's already in the bag. Speaking of worrying, last week on the program, we talked about Diego Sanchez being a crazy person. And, well, the beat goes on. As Sonny and Cher would like to say, I'm a 30-year-old man making 50-year-old references. That just seems on par for me. That is on brand, as the kids would say. Diego Sanchez no longer identifies as a UFC fighter and shall henceforth be known as Diego Sanchez the human being. It's not a Clark Kent Superman thing. It's just, I believe he now states his job is being a human being. As we talked about last week on the show, he was getting his ass kicked, Sanchez being pronouns pal. Sanchez was getting his asshole kicked in by Michel Pereira in the main event of UFC Rio Rancho. But an accidental knee while grounded opened the door for Sanchez to take the victory because he claimed he had blood going into his eyes. I have the same blood trickling down my cheek when I'm shaving is the same amount that Pereira had, that Sanchez had over his eye. So, you know, Deontay Wilder had a busted eardrum. You know what Deontay Wilder blamed his loss on? And we'll get into that on possibly next week on the show. A 45-pound outfit. At least there's more reasoning and rationale there than what was given to us by Diego Sanchez. But Sanchez, who's 38, doesn't really care about how he won, and he feels that his time spent under Joshua Fabia, the man who shoved peppermint extract up Sanchez's nose and warned the Athletic Commission of a potential murder choke in his UFC 239 fight against Michael Chiesa, is putting Sanchez in a position to where he can compete with purpose and understanding. I don't look like I'm going anywhere, Sanchez told MMA Junkie. I'm speaking healthy. He's speaking healthy. And this is more than a fighting career because Diego Sanchez, the UFC fighter, the identity, that's been done and dead. I am Diego Sanchez, the human being now. Is that kind of like a Prince / the artist formerly known as Prince situation? I'm doing everything in the best of my ability, in the best way that I can for my future, and that includes standing up to the bullies who are taking advantage of me and not treating me correctly. I guess he means his former coaches. Diego Sanchez is talking in riddles now. He's basically talking like that friend of yours who's trying to sell you on Herbalife. I don't know if many people have dealt with this, if our friends in the States who go to high school, and then there's people from high school who try to message you on Facebook Messenger at 3 o'clock in the morning. This has happened to me, or just weird hours of the day, and they try to sign you up for Herbalife or another pyramid scheme. This is that. This is what Joshua Fabia is doing. It's, as I said, it's the Eugene Melby attack. It's the Dr. Melby attack. Eugene Landy philosophy that was used on Brian Wilson. Next thing you know, Diego Sanchez is going to prepare for his next fight by just digging sandcastles and building sandcastles in his house. It's insanity. Sanchez has faced heavy criticism by hitching his wagon to Fabia, who considers himself an expert at pretty much everything. But the last two fights for Sanchez against Chiesa and against Pereira have really not shown that Sanchez is to where he was before joining Fabia, or at really any point in his career. The former Season 1 UFC, the Ultimate Fighter competitor, has just kind of been in a bad spot. And no one knows if this is a midlife crisis, the effects of a long career, or just a full-blown loony. We don't know if he's gone full banana pants, if he's gone, round the bend, up the wacko basket, whatever your favorite superlative is. But let's go on here. I've always been different than everybody else, and maybe that's why I've lasted so long, the former Nightmare has said. I continue to thrive in a special, unique, unorthodox approach that has led me to Joshua, and what he's done for me, and how this side of mixed martial arts is amazing. You should really look into it and become aware of that. Yet again, it feels like he's trying to sell me Wake Up Now or Herbalife. If he starts talking about thetans or e-meters, I'm calling the police. I'm going to start calling the police or having wellness checks done on Diego Sanchez, because at this point, ooda lolly, this is some interesting thinking. Let's move on here to Conor McGregor. Speaking of crazy people, earlier this week, an idea of a fight between Justin Gaethje and Conor McGregor, which has been talked about for a while at lightweight, was seemingly going to happen this summer. Now, it seems to have just been premature talk, according to Gaethje's manager and fellow crazy person who's been banned from several places, Ali Abdelaziz, who took to social media to not only squash the bout that he and Gaethje had been calling for a year, but stating that his fighter is the true number one contender at 155 pounds, even though the other fighter he represents, Khabib Nurmagomedov, is the champion at 155 pounds. So there's a little bit of conflict of interest there. The rumor about Justin Gaethje fighting Conor McGregor is absolutely false, Abdelaziz said on Twitter. He had the opportunity to fight him instead of Cowboy, but he didn't. Justin is the number one contender, and like Khabib said, Conor needs to win 10 fights. Now, let's break down the logic and reasoning of that. Conor McGregor was not going to fight his first fight back at 155. He was going to fight it at welterweight because that's where his body was. Now that Conor's trying to go back down to 155, Gaethje, the guy that's been calling McGregor out for the better part of a year and a half, finally gets his crack at McGregor. But it's seemingly him and Abdelaziz don't want any of that smoke, or using this as a leverage tactic to get a fight with McGregor later in the year for more money. This is the approach that fighters and managers do to get what they want. After fighting Ferguson at UFC 249 next month, don't really expect for Khabib to fight again until September, October, And McGregor's going to want to fight again between now and the end of the year. So he wants to fight at least 2 more times. And Gaethje has yet to fight in 2020. And who's he going to fight? Dustin Poirier? Who at 155 is Gaethje going to fight? He's going to fight Al Iaquinta? Is he going to fight any of the other guys at 155 that are not Conor McGregor and not going to get him a pay-per-view main event payday? He's just going to sit and bide his time until maybe fighting Khabib in October? It's not like he's going to fight him at International Fight Week. That's probably not going to happen. It's not going to happen in August. So right now, Gaethje and Abdelaziz are talking themselves out of some major money, and the 10 fights thing is bullshit. We all know that. Khabib and Conor is going to be a fight that happens, if not this year, next year. That it's just bound to happen. But for Abdelaziz to say this, it's basically so people like myself talk about the fight. Now, the thing that probably chapped Gaethje and Abdelaziz's asses was after Conor McGregor wrecked Cowboy with shoulder strikes in under a minute. He said that McGregor's the front runner for the next shot at the title, whether it's Tony Ferguson or Khabib after UFC 249. And that's not going to sit well with Gaethje, who's really wanting a title fight and honestly deserves a title fight. I'm not going to argue against that. But for the love of God, to quote Harley Race, somebody please take the damn money. Justin, you're going to get your title shot. It's either going to be at the end of this year or early next year. You take the McGregor fight, you win or you lose, and then you get the winner of that fight. You're leaving money on the table out of pride. And, well, pride hasn't existed for over a decade, and also you're a mixed martial artist and you're a prize fighter. The Conor McGregor money is going to be more than what you make against Khabib or Tony. Let's not fool ourselves here. That is the only reason right now that you should be focused on doing anything. And if you've been talking all this shit about knocking out Conor McGregor and him ducking you, and then you and your agent immediately, whether it's because of pride or frustration or anger or just bravado, or you're trying to zig when McGregor's zagging and say straight up, I don't want to fight you. Your opportunity, your window is closed. It's not your window. It's definitely not your window. It's Conor's window. He's the one operating the pay window. It's not you, Justin. And it's nothing against Gaethje. Hell of a fighter, hell of a competitor. Hell, I'd like to see him fight any of the elite at 155. But come on, pal. Take the damn money. And now let's go to boxing. I will not break down Wilder versus Fury because I was indisposed last weekend and did not have $70. But Tyson Fury winning did kind of infuriate me. The rematch will happen. We will talk about it. And hopefully we could do a live breakdown of it on MMAmania.com like we're going to do for UFC 248 this coming Saturday on March 7th. Not tomorrow if you're listening to this podcast on February 28th. But it will be on March 7th. Right here on the MMA Mania YouTube channel. Oh, actually, no, it's going to be on the SBN MMA YouTube channel on the mothership. But be sure to subscribe to that and the MMA Mania YouTube channel. Smash that like button, ring that bell for the notifications as Harry Turjani and myself, and appearances by Dan A. White and other friends and notables for UFC 248. That one is going to be bananas, and we talked about Weili Zhang and Joanna and Jacek, and we'll do a science versus probability of that card next week. But let's go back to boxing. Eddie Hearn's got a card this weekend. It's Mikey Garcia and Jesse Vargas battling for a WBC title that may or may not be a world title. We don't know. The WBC hands belts out like it's candy at Halloween, and Mauricio Suleiman has a new belt for every occasion. I think this podcast got a belt, whether or not it was made of ancient Native American feathers and, Jiminy Cricket's hat. The belts there are pretty banana pants. But it's Eddie Hearn. is the promoter of Matchroom Boxing. He's Anthony Joshua's promoter, and he's basically the DAZN plug. He is the entire reason combat sports on DAZN has launched as big as it did. If you want to be on DAZN, you got to go through Eddie Hearn. That's what Golden Boy did. That's why Rocky Fielding got Canelo's first fight on DAZN, and that's why a whole bunch of weird stuff has happened on DAZN. And I've interviewed Eddie Hearn briefly before, and he is a charismatic character. And one thing, according to our own MMAmania.com's Jesse Holland, is he tinkering from the Dana White playbook a little bit. Hearn is the promoter of Anthony Joshua, and he's a big fan of Dana White and admits that he's cribbed stuff from looking at the UFC, and he's wanted to work with the UFC. Hearn and Dana have talked publicly before and have taken photos with each other before, and there's been talks of Zuffa Boxing getting involved with one another. Hell, Top Rank is allegedly up for sale, and I think it's for an ungodly amount of money. It'll probably be in the billions or hundreds of millions of dollars. And both DAZN and I believe Endeavor, who own the UFC, and maybe even a Matchroom, are, talking or, trying to figure out whether or not they want to buy Top Rank. But Hearn is trying to basically become the Dana White of boxing, and I can't really fault him. When you look at boxing promoters these days, you've got a few very notable people in the industry. You have your Eddie Hearns, you have your Bob Arums, you have Oscar De La Hoya, who's become a very problematic figure in the MMA world because of the complete abomination known as Liddell and Tito. And don't worry, we've got that Tito story lined up for you in a second. But there's no defining promoter. Arum was for such a long time. Don King, obviously, but Don has fallen by the wayside. He promotes Bermain Stavern now, and that was just known as Anthony Joshua Victims number 37 and 39. But let's get back to Hearn. I've seen Dana White doing it, and I'm just completely copying his idea, Hearn said, of the way he's been promoting his fights. And if you've not seen how Matchroom Boxing promotes their fights, it is a spectacle. Whether it's the weigh-ins they did for Joshua Ruiz, they took over the Oculus here in New York, in downtown Manhattan, right by the World Trade Center PATH train. The Oculus looks like a whale's vagina, by the way, which is completely disconcerting when you look at it from the outside. But they took that over and turned it into a gym. They did their open workouts there. They have these larger-than-life press conferences inside Madison Square Garden. They do these gigantic events, and it's a lot of the same stuff the UFC's been doing. They make it feel larger than life, and they're playing with DAZN money, which is hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, being handed to them by venture capitalists. And he doesn't want to sound like a fanboy, but he's got massive respect for the UFC and what it's done. And for a Jesse Vargas and Mikey Garcia fight, Mikey Garcia, one of my favorite boxers, one hell of a fighter, but a fight against Jesse Vargas where there's not really a major title on the line, you're gonna need to work on your carny and your promoting to get that done. And it's going up against a flyweight title fight this weekend, Joseph Benavidez versus Davison Figueiredo. And I cannot wait to see Joseph Benavidez finally become flyweight champion. I think it's going to happen. We'll talk about it more. It's science versus probability. But props to Eddie Hearn for trying to make something happen. It's just, it goes back to the conversation, the narrative, if you will, of the past 10 years of boxing versus MMA. When you look at the growth of mixed martial arts over the past 10 to 15 years, it's grown at a more exponential rate than boxing. But last weekend, everybody was talking about Wilder and Fury. A year ago, at the end of 2018, not a lot of people were talking about the first Wilder-Fury fight, and that fight was amazing. But at the start of that fight led into the start of 2019, into the Joshua Ruiz series, into Fury going to ESPN, Joshua building up his profile, and then this rematch. And this rematch made the most money of any heavyweight title fight in Las Vegas in history. It beat out, or it's near to, Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis's Vegas fight. Just somewhere around $18 million. comparatively, you look at UFC and primarily, MMA and primarily UFC, the star power of the UFC is there more consistently. There's a bigger base for the UFC. There are more recognizable names in the culture as a cultural zeitgeist. But a major boxing fight, you're going to get people paying $70, $80. If you have Terrence Crawford, if you have an Anthony Joshua, if you have a Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, now those three are the biggest names in boxing. You have a Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao can sell 600, 700,000 pay-per-views just with him on the card alone. And as the growth of heavyweight boxing, the rising tides of the other divisions will go as well. In the 1960s and 70s, it was all heavyweights. Into the 1980s, it started getting into the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Roberto Durans, the Hagler Hearns era. But what buoyed it, what kept boxing going, after Leonard retired 4 to 5 times, Duran had his problems, was Mike Tyson and the rise of heavyweights in boxing. And right now, for the UFC, the heavyweight division is in a weird state of flux, and we've talked about that on this show before. When you look at Stipe Miocic and you look at Daniel Cormier, potentially John Jones, the UFC's major divisions, with the exception of 205, are loaded for bear and have depth to them. So it's going to be an interesting comparison over the next 5 years to me of how mixed martial arts and primarily the UFC tracks against a group like Matchroom, who are trying to bolster their ranks. When you try to line up comparatively a Conor McGregor and Canelo Alvarez, for me, those are the two most comparable stars. Both of them are in their early 30s. Both of them are ungodly wealthy due to Floyd Mayweather. And both are at the top of their game. You can argue that whether or not that's true for McGregor because of the Khabib fight, but you watch the Cowboy fight. You get what I'm saying. When you look at it within that prism, and Canelo Alvarez signs the richest contract in sports history, but you see the numbers that Conor McGregor draws, do we see in the next 3 to 5 years McGregor signing a bigger contract? Do we see McGregor becoming as big of an asset to the U.S.? Because he is already. That's the thing, is that boxing is still valued higher than mixed martial arts, and I'm trying to figure out why. I've covered boxing and MMA for the same amount of time, and I've always found mixed martial arts to be way more interesting, way bigger in the zeitgeist, yet they're not making the same level of money. And I don't know if it's the social institutions that have propped boxing up for so long, whether or not there's 8,362 boxing promoters and there's only 2 or 3 MMA organizations worth a good damn. It's confounding. But the fact that Conor McGregor or a Daniel Cormier aren't making the level of money that a Tyson Fury or a Deontay Wilder or Canelo Alvarez is making is bothersome. Now let's talk about a tragedy. Let's talk about a real tragedy here on the show. Starting to sound like Art Bell. Talk about a real tragedy here. Oh, it's Tom Likas. But last December, if you follow us at MMAmania.com, myself and Jesse Holland, we took a trip down to Hidalgo, Texas. The farthest I've ever traveled in my life was to Hidalgo, Texas on December 7th to watch Tito Ortiz embarrass Alberto Del Rio at Combate Americas. And Alberto gave it his best shot, but Tito Ortiz against Alberto Del Rio. Alberto a pro. Alberto's fought MMA, but 10-year layoff. Same thing with Tito's fight against Chuck Liddell. Tito tapped him. Larger-than-life event, considered a success. We had a great night at Mania. Ended up eating Whataburger at 2 o'clock in the morning, so I really can't complain, except for a 4-hour layover in Houston. Oh, God, that was the lounge was nice, but that's all I'll say about that flight from hell. Per a report from the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, which is TDLR, they've overturned Tito Ortiz's victory, leaving both fighters with a no contest. The TDLR Public Information Officer, Telemange, told MMA Junkie that the outcome is pending further investigation. A spokesman from Combate Americas talked to us here at MMAmania.com and said the promotion is still in the fact-finding phase of the investigation. This does not look good for Tito Ortiz, who just turned 45 over the past month. And, well, now that it's a no contest, that takes away Ortiz's victory, which takes away the conceit of the fight. If Ortiz won, Ortiz would get the WWE Championship belt that Alberto Del Rio won. But if Alberto won, he would have gotten the UFC belt that Ortiz won, while light heavyweight champion. Tito won. Tito got the belt. Does he give up the belt now? Yes. Technically, yes. I don't know contractually if that's a part of the situation, or they just, as men, will decide, hey, whether or not it says you beat me, you did beat me, and you get to keep the belt. But if I'm Tito Ortiz and it remains a no contest, and it's for the reasons why everybody thinks it's a no contest, then you give the belt back. You do the honorable thing. Or you challenge him again, but this time, pro wrestling match. Here's how we do this. You say, the athletic commission told me that I had to give up the belt, that this was a no contest, that I didn't win, but in the middle of that cage, in the middle of the jaula, I made him tap. I'm a clean fighter. I'm a legend. I'm a UFC Hall of Famer. And Alberto Del Rio, I beat you in your world, my world. Now you can try to beat me in your world. And Combate Americas has connections in the pro wrestling world. Combate Americas has the platform to put something on like this. Hell, I have a platform to put something on like this. I own a wrestling company. So right now, Combate Americas, I'm making you an offer. You've got those 2 belts. I've got a ring. I've got some time on some international television stations. And I've got this platform. So I am officially announcing that if Combate Americas is interested, we do Tito Del Rio 2, or Tito El Patron 2, inside a ring on a show I promote. You cover the financing. I'll handle the rest. We put together a ring. We book a venue. We book some people on it. We have ourselves a good time. We put that sumbitch on pay-per-view and see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? There's no athletic commissions. What at this point does anybody in that situation have to lose? Tito Ortiz his entire life wanted to be a pro wrestler. He had a stint in Impact. Didn't go the way he wanted it. He's training down at the Performance Center now. He's 45 years old. Alberto's in his early 40s. He also has his own wrestling company, Nacion Lucha Libre. What do you stand to lose in a situation like that? At this point, just have a little fun. Make the most out of the situation. More importantly, make some money. At the end of the day, we're all business people. We're all businessmen and women. And if people want to play ball, you play ball. Out of all the realms of possibility, what would you rather see? Would you rather see them fight in mixed martial arts again? Or would you rather see the pageantry of a pro wrestling match? I ask that to you, the 2-point deduction faithful. Whether or not this gets cut from the episode is something we'll find out. But when we're going to take a brief time out, and by that it's going to be a little transition graphic there. It's time for Science and Probability, or Science versus Probability, with Stephanie Sottile. RuPaul's favorite segment of the show, Science versus Probability, and I'm here with Stephanie Sottile.
You have to guesstimate for your life. Right?
Yeah,
you said his favorite segment.
Yes.
So.
That's according to Collier's magazine, which has been out of business for 3 decades. I don't know how they foresaw that, but they foresaw that.
Well, doesn't Paper Magazine looks like it's just from the 70s?
Yes, but I'm talking about Collier's, not Paper. And Stephanie, it is time for science versus probability, and you're in the lead.
Of course, it's science.
Science last week took a 7-6 lead over probability.
Yeah.
And good for you, Steph.
Yay! We decided who gets what if whoever wins.
Winner gets a cake.
Really?
Yes, we said that in the first episode.
But you're not like the biggest fan of cake. What do you want if you win?
I'll figure it out. Meat cake? Just make me like a meatloaf.
That sounds like a site that was blocked in school.
Meat
Is
cake. Meatloaf cake?
Meat cake.
Yes.
Sounds way worse.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's called meatloaf. Also,
I'll buy you a meatloaf.
Yes.
If probability.
So, Steph, last week you took Dan the Hangman Hooker over Paul Felder. You were correct. I took Paul Felder. We both took Jimmy the Brute Crute, who beat Michael the Lord Ozwejcik.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolina Kowalkiewicz, the Polish princess, got pounded by Yan Xinjiao, as we both took Fury or Nine, which were her nicknames.
Yes, see?
Multiple nicknames. Well, all right.
More than one. She's everywhere.
Speaking of multiple nicknames,
Yes.
it is UFC Norfolk this Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And for the UFC flyweight title, for the vacant flyweight title, it'll be Davison Figueiredo, whose nicknames are Daikao, and Jesus de Gata, which is God of War.
Wow, video game. Love it. Keep going.
Going up against Joseph, Joey 2 times, Joey B1 Kenobi, the Beefcake, and the Jiu-Jitsu practitioner Benavidez. Those are nicknames he's had at varying points of his career.
I was going to ask, who's calling you these?
Variety of people. I call him Jiu-Jitsu.
What were the other ones?
Joey B1 Kenobi, Joey 2 times, the Beefcake.
Okay, look. Already you start off with 2 movie references. It's not unique.
He did Figueiredo did God of War, though.
I don't think. Look, I was joking. I don't think he actually got that from the video game. I think he just thinks they're 2 powerful words. The God of War, Ares.
Okay, so who's your pick?
See, I'm going to stick with God of War because I find it very arrogant to have so many nicknames. My goodness, how many do you need? Are you taking up all of them? Why?
Steph takes Figueiredo, and I'm going with Joseph Benavidez. Benavidez is coming into Saturday night on a 3-fight win streak, 2 of them by TKO. He beat former champion Henry Cejudo, who moved up to bantamweight. Yes.
Yes, I knew that. Totally.
And while Figueiredo, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. When it comes to common opponents, both of them faced off against Jussier Formiga. And Formiga beat Figueiredo, but did not beat Benavidez. I am taking Joseph Benavidez.
Joey 2 times is Joey Kangaroo.
Joey Jojo Shabadoo.
It's a terrible name.
And we have one more fight this week. Just one more. It is Zaim Fion dos Santos, a.k.a. Infinite, going up against Felicia the Phenom Spencer. Fee spelt F-E-E, not the traditional P-H-E.
Is there a reason?
I believe because her nickname is Fee, because her name is Felicia.
Okay. The Phenom.
Yes.
Versus Infinite.
Yes.
Love it on your notes. Infinite's in quotes, like she is either quoting another nickname or she means it ironically.
Oh, no, I
am infinite.
No, my formatting was terrible because I'm using notes.
So, do you reference wrestling a lot on this or no? Are we allowed to reference it?
I did just in the beginning of the program offer to Combate America to have Tito Ortiz and Alberto Del Rio in a professional wrestling ring.
I didn't know this needs to be. We're going to talk about wrestling and keep it separate. I'm not sure.
You can. Yeah, that was the implicit.
I know. I'm saying this is my thought process. Anyway, the Phenom. There is a wrestler with that nickname, is there not?
Yes, The Undertaker.
Yeah. So that's what that reminds me of. So I'm going to go with Felicia.
All right, so she's taking Felicia Spencer. Spencer coming off her first pro loss, but it was to Chris Cyborg in Cyborg's last UFC fight. Started her career with a 7-fight win streak, all but 2 of them. That means 5 have come by way of stoppage, so stopping 5 of her opponents, while Santos is 6-3 as a pro, and lost to Megan Anderson, a common opponent with Spencer, who Spencer defeated in May of 2019. In May of 2019, I will also be going with Felicia Spencer.
Okay, then.
Steph, how can we find you on the social medias?
Sure. To find more scientific analyzation like I did today, and to see if analyzation is a real word, you can go to any of social medias, Twitter or Instagram, and if you search God's Unwanted Daughter, you will find her. And I'm also embarrassingly on TikTok now.
Yes, she is. And you can also catch Steph along with Harry Turjanian, the co-host of my UFC pay-per-view coverage on SBN MMA.
I hear he's not liked by someone else.
Yes.
That's been on your show.
Yes, Dan A. White.
I don't know who it was. He was tiny.
Yes, he was a very bald man. He's
And
very grumpy.
smallest dick I've ever seen on a puppet. He kept showing it to me.
How many puppet dicks have you seen?
He kept showing it
That's
to me.
not. No. You've seen.
Yes.
The only puppet dick I've ever seen.
Look, I had the uncut version of Wienerville from Nickelodeon. It was a very different show.
Oh, I don't want to. That gives a whole new
Director's cut.
Gives a whole new meaning to Boney. March 18th at the Stand in New York City. You could see Stephanie Sottile
Please
and Harry
never,
Turjanian.
ever make that mistake again.
You can see the Captain and Tennille on March 18th at the Stand on the card. Yes, fighting in the Stand on March 18th.
It's gonna be us versus Joe Pera.
Yes, Joe Pera from the amazing Adult Swim series, should have been an Andy Kaufman Award winner.
I love him.
One of my favorite stand-up comedians, Joe Pera. Katie Hartman and David Carl will be providing the music, and Matt Gehring will be performing characters. That's the first ever unwanted variety, somewhat of an hour, on March 18th. And you can get tickets at thestandnyc.com.
Thank you. Yes, perfect. And we will be doing sketch comedy.
Yes.
Unless that deters you. But it shouldn't. It's interesting.
What would you do if people said, we'd love to come see you guys, but we don't want to see you do sketch? What would you do instead?
I'd say the alternative is not pretty. You're just going to see us cry.
Well, you do cry pretty.
And then people get, start touching themselves. It's not good to watch us cry.
You know what? I've got a question for you. We do this game. We do science versus probability.
Yes.
Science. What would be your nickname if you were an MMA fighter?
What do you think it should be?
I don't know if I could say that on YouTube.
I mean, you can't say anything on YouTube. They're destroying channels left and right. I'm not sure. Maybe Cupcake?
There's already a fighter with the nickname Cupcake.
I don't care. Rainbow Cupcake.
Okay, there we go.
Rainbow Cupcake.
Right.
2 of my favorite things. And 2 things that I probably had the most of stickers as a child. It's rainbows and cupcakes. I love them both.
Mine would be in homage to my favorite Simpsons episode ever, The Opponent.
See, I would have chosen for you Gingerbeard. That's all. And then when you beat your opponent, they can say, he was just served a cold, frosty glass of Gingerbeard because you beat him. I don't know if that's something Morrow would yell into a microphone, but it might be.
Well, it would be certainly an interesting thing to say, and now I'm probably going to say that next week, because I think the Violent Bob Ross is fighting at UFC 248.
I think I've seen a photo of him.
Yes, he's fantastic.
Good.
He looks like if Bill Walton and Bob Ross made a fighter.
I don't know who that first person was, but I'm going to assume
You saw him on Shark Tank the other day. Stephanie watches nothing but Shark Tank.
Only now.
And Bill Walton was on there in a water bottle outfit.
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, no, I still think you should go by Gingerbeard.
All right. You can follow me on Instagram as Je suis Matt Ryan. Please watch Capital Wrestling every single week on Fight TV or the Fight Network or on YouTube by searching Capital Wrestling. Also listening to it on Gas Digital. Be sure to support the cause and listen to us on March 7th when we bring you UFC 248 right here on the internet at the SBN MMA channel, and then later on the BE Presents SoundCloud page. Remember to subscribe. Remember to hit that like button. Review. Comment. Let us know what you think of the podcast Let us know you're listening or watching. And till next time, so long from the catbird seat. This has been the 2 Point Deduction Podcast.